while we're here, given that there's a lot of organizations that contributed to the petition drop, I'm going to take this moment to read the names of the different organizations that contributed. Thank you to America's Voice, Sierra Club, People for the American Way, Public Citizen, Credo, which played an incredible role in organizing this entire event, Color of Change, Win Without War, United We Dream, NDWA, Ultraviolet, Daily Kos, Defending Rights and Dissent, Bend the Arc Jewish Action, People Demanding Action, Women's March National, Center for Popular Democracy, Demand Progress, RAICES, RAICES, People's Action, Presente, Beyond the Bomb, Move On, and Democracy for America. So thank you to all those organizations for building this 769,000 petition wall that we are going to be presenting to the senator shortly.
Put the banner down for a little bit. I think like 10 minutes might be a while to just stand here. Yeah. We can pick it back up when the senator gets here.
Are these individual signatures, do you think?
No, just empty boxes. Save papers on the signatures and a flash drive.
So it's really like this?
Yeah.
It's not a show, is it?
No, it's not. It takes a lot to move 750,000 signatures. Yeah.
We did a thing like this when I was working with Move On that had real boxing, real paper. It was a long time ago.
Welcome Carrie Talbot from the Immigration Hub to talk about how we got to this point.
Great, thank you. I think what we have, so again, I'm Mary Small from Detention Watch and the Defund Hate Campaign. This is Carrie Talbot.
Sana O'Bark.
With United We Dream.
With United We Dream and the Defund Hate Campaign.
And while we're waiting for the senator to arrive, we thought we'd take this opportunity to talk a little bit more about how we got here. I think you've heard expressions of outrage from all of our organizations, backed by outrage from hundreds of thousands of people all across the country. But for anyone watching, maybe we can take a little bit of a step back and talk about the months-long process leading up to this, which is a clear indication that this is not an emergency that came out of nowhere, but a maneuver, a runaround by the president who didn't get what he wanted. So maybe I'll turn it over to Carrie to kick us off on talking about sort of way back in time where this all began.
Yeah, I mean, really this all began with President Trump demanding his border wall, and just kind of like a person who just doesn't get what they want. He just is unwilling to take no as an answer from Congress. And really Congress, stated their interests in terms of not wanting to fund the wall. There was a negotiation that happens as part of basically like a conference to try to figure out DHS funding. And, eventually Congress did give him a little bit of what he wanted in terms of the wall, but he did not get anywhere near his full request. And so, he just decided to make this power grab and go around the Constitution and essentially attempt to get this money on his own, which we believe is illegal and will be struck down by the courts, in my view.
And maybe even to zoom out one step further, we have a picture of part of the Constitution here with us today, but just to remind everyone who's watching at home, the Constitution very clearly gives the power of the purse to Congress, and I know this was already mentioned in some of the remarks here today. It doesn't give it to the executive. And so when you hear folks talking about this as a constitutional crisis, when you hear folks talking about this as a power grab that's really democracy damaging, we have to understand it within the context of a really clear delineation in the Constitution about who has the power to make funding decisions, and it's not the president.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add here that from the moment that the Trump administration entered this political landscape, we knew that Trump and his people would be using every single tool in their toolbox to essentially detain more immigrants and deport more immigrants. We saw that with some of the first executive orders that he released in January of 2017, with calls for an unnecessary and racist border wall, more agents of CBP and ICE to be hired to go in and target, profile, detain, and deport more immigrant communities. We've seen the egregious demands for billions and billions of more dollars for a wall, for agents, for the expansion of detention camps that are currently holding immigrants, immigrant children, immigrant families in those detention camps. And now we're seeing this power grab to manipulate every single lever, to take every tool in the toolbox in a concerted effort to essentially carry out this hateful anti-immigrant agenda. And I'm very excited to see that progressive partners, that folks within the immigration coalition and all around us are coming together to support the efforts to push back and say no more detentions, no more deportations, no more money for your hateful agenda.
Any other folks have anything that they want to add about how we got to this point?
I can share our President of Public Citizen, Robert Weissman's statement on the state of emergency. This is, the President of Public Citizen. Today's presidential declaration, this is written on the day of a national emergency, is an outrageous abuse of power, perhaps the most dangerous yet by the unstable and increasingly autocratic President Donald Trump. It is this invocation of emergency on false pretenses. If it is tolerated, it could justify almost limitless abuses of presidential and military power, including far-reaching clampdowns on civil rights. On behalf of several Texas landowners and a Texas environmental organization that will experience firsthand the immediate impact of Trump's illegal emergency declaration, we will sue to challenge his unconstitutional attempt to circumvent the legislative process. Although we think the law and the Constitution are on our side, we can't count on the courts to act quickly or ultimately to restrain Trump. The United States is a constitutional democracy, not a monarchy. If the Republican, Democratic, and independent members of the United States Congress are to uphold their oath of office, they must act immediately to overturn Trump's emergency declaration. There is no serious claim to be made of an emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border to justify construction of a wall. Every half-hearted and palpably fabricated rationale to justify claims of emergency has been thoroughly and embarrassingly debunked. Unauthorized immigration is not surging. There is no terrorist invasion from Mexico. Illegal drug traffic is channeled through legal ports of entry, not open border areas. The only crisis at the border is the buildup in Mexico of families seeking asylum in the United States. But those people are seeking legal entry into the United States and the crisis is due to the Trump administration's refusal to afford them humane treatment. No, Trump's emergency declaration has nothing to do with an emergency. It is due entirely to his political problem of being unable to secure congressional appropriations to construct a racist and needless wall. The danger of Trump's action to America is not limited to the outrage of wasting taxpayer money or the immorality of building a wall that is designed only to symbolize disdain for and antagonism to people of color seeking refuge in our country. Trump has declared an emergency to circumvent an explicit congressional decision not to fund the wall. I'll add, including a Republican-led Congress in both houses, and to direct funds in a way that would be illegal in the absence of an emergency declaration, and which we believe is illegal even with the emergency declaration. If the president can merely cry emergency to override national law and contravene explicit congressional action, particularly when the claimed emergency is transparently fraudulent, then it is hard to know what limits exist on presidential power. What's to stop the president from declaring an emergency and limiting the right to protest, to round up people of color en masse to combat purported gang activity, to deploy the military on the streets to maintain order, to censor social media and internet conversations? Prior presidents have, for the most part, exercised self-restraint against use and misuse of emergency powers. But this president does not know the meaning of self-restraint. If the slide to authoritarianism and tyranny is to be averted, he will need to be restrained, in the first place by the Congress, and if not, hopefully the courts, but ultimately by the American people. It is imperative that Congress act, and the Senate now must act, to stop Trump, and we the people must make our Senate do that. Thanks.
Should we mention some of the other things that are happening in the coming days and weeks?
Yeah, sure. So this petition delivery is actually part of a week or more of action to pass the declaration through the Senate and hopefully successfully see its fruition. So tomorrow night there's actually a call if you're a grassroots activist or someone who cares about this issue and is learning about it. Now there's going to be a call with Congressman Castro, who led the revocation of the emergency declaration bill in the House successfully at 8:30 tomorrow night. So we hope you'll join us. And I see we are welcome. Thank you so much.
How's everybody doing? Thank you. Here, let me walk over here next to you, you can.
My pleasure
go
to have
ahead.
you here.
Yeah.
So we're thrilled that you're here. Thank you for accepting these petitions on behalf of dozens and dozens of organizations. There's 769,000 signatures here. But I'd like to introduce you and then let you share your thoughts. Senator Tom Udall is the senior senator from New Mexico who has served in the U.S. Senate since 2009 after 2 decades of public service as a U.S. representative and New Mexico's state attorney general. He is the lead sponsor with Senator Susan Collins of a resolution to revoke the president's emergency declaration in order to protect the constitutional separation of powers and Congress's power of the purse. He's a longtime champion of democracy issues as well, and we're very pleased to introduce Senator Tom Udall.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a very generous, very nice introduction. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for all this hard work. I mean, this is pretty incredible, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But the work that's gone into collecting all of these petitions is very, very special. But let me first of all start with, this is about our Constitution, as you all know. I mean, we have a Constitution that has a separation of powers. The Congress has the power of the purse. And so what we've seen over the years is the Congress is very diligent about protecting the power of the purse and putting money in the budget in order to do specific things. And in this case, what we have going on is the president is engaging in a power grab. he proposed a budget. We didn't give him all of what he wanted. We actually changed it quite a bit, but he signed it when he got the bill. And so we've had now a bill signed by the president, and then he announces we're going to go with a national emergency and raid it. And he's going to raid it in the defense area. He's going to raid it in the substance abuse area, and that is totally unacceptable under the Constitution, under how we've normally done business. We're talking about having a majority, and I think we've already got 4 Republicans. As I'm counting the votes, we could get 10. So that would move us from 47 to 57. But as you know, when the bill goes up to the president, if he vetoes it, it comes back for a veto override. So where we really need your help is to get the next 10 votes to get to a veto override. So that's basically where we are. Ned, is there anything else you wanted me to cover? You or Allison or anybody else? I'm happy to just sum up by saying citizen activism in this case and the organizations that you represent has really made a difference. It's gotten us a significant amount of the way. We just now need to just redouble our efforts and get it done. So with that, I'm going to slip off and thank you all very much. And Allison, you can take any questions from everybody.
Thank you, Senator.
And that concludes our event. Thank you all for coming. Please take action. Again, there's a call tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern with Representative Castro about the same issue. And then there's going to be actions all over the country on Monday where people will be delivering constitutions to their U.S. senators in state. So if you are watching and you want to be part of that, yes, and then there's also call-in day tomorrow, Thursday the 7th, and also on Monday the 11th. If you